Hi everyone, this is Constellations here. So we finally have our first Kokomi math video ready. It took me a while to do the Kokomi math because of how her entire kit and structure is different from usual DPS. So first off, in this video, we'll talk about we'll do some math regarding her potential, or maybe I shouldn't say about it, her performance as a main DPS. Because I think people are thinking that she's a main DPS that can heal. For me personally, before I did the math, I don't have a high expectation because I don't think MiHoYo will make a healer that can DPS, because it just doesn't make sense to me. You're essentially making a DPS that, if you make a broken DPS that can heal, then I don't know what is the purpose of characters like Diona and Bandit, for example. It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so anyway, no worries about that. We will look at the math figures and you guys can decide for yourself how the damage is like. And I'll also do a comparison, just a very quick one, so you can appreciate where her damage actually lies. And I'm going to factor in Vaporize as well. Alright, so first off, we just quickly run through this Kokomi stats. So base HP is quite high, 13.4k. Hota is still the highest, of course. Base attack is about a average 4-star character's base attack. Okay. Crit rate 5, crit damage 50, but there is a passive that completely removes her crit rate by a multiplicative factor, so don't bother building more than 100% crit rate. Base defense, meh. Damage bonus, she actually gets hydro damage bonus on her ascension. And we have to talk about her signature weapon. So in this video, we will just look at Kokomi with her signature weapon. In subsequent videos, I'll add in weapon comparisons, I'll add in different builds, I'll add in artifact comparisons as well. Yeah, it takes a lot of effort to do all those maps, so we'll do them step by step. So first off, let's talk about Everlasting Moonglow, her signature weapon. It actually looks pretty good, I like it. The inner circle ring here, it actually rotates in a different direction as per the outer, so it creates a very nice effect when you're just looking at it. But how about its performance? So it has HP percentage as a subset, which is expected because this is how Kokomi is built, more or less. She more or less scales based on HP. Why I say more or less is because her elemental skill doesn't scale based off HP, at least the damage of it. That's fine. We don't need to talk about that right now. What I see is that her signature weapon gives a very nice amount of HP percentage, 49.6% at level 19, and base attack 608, so that's pretty nice. R1 effect, healing bonus increased by 10%, normal attack damage is increased by 1% of the max HP of the character equipping this weapon. And for 12 seconds after using an elemental burst, normal attacks that hit opponents will restore 0.6 energy. Energy can restore this way once every 0.1 second. So basically you can just restore energy, 0.6 energy per hit for the duration of 12 seconds. Now, here's the thing about this. There's a lot of debate right now whether or not this normal attack damage is a multiplicative of how this works. Whether it's like a direct multiplicative bonus, which I highly doubt so, by the way, and I'll show you guys the reason why later. Or it's a flat attack increase, or flat damage increase from HP. So we'll talk about that later. R5 basically double the healing bonus and triple this effect. The fact that it's triple, right, is another indication that I don't think it's multiplicative, because no way MiHoYo is going to make a bad weapon so broken. If anything, if it's multiplicative, this would probably be less. This wouldn't even be 2%. Okay. But we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so stats wise, her base attack is pretty low for 5-star, but that's fine because she scales off of HP, and her base HP is quite high. I think it's like 4th or 3rd highest. Okay, now artifacts. I am going to do quite a number of artifact comparisons for you guys today. So we have R1, R5, always a pair. This is always a pair. So this here, a permutation is that it's HP main sense, HP sense, Elemental Goblet, which is damage goblet, Hydro Goblet in this case, and healing bonus helmet or headpiece. Then the next pair you have HP slash Hydro slash HP. The next pair we have HP slash healing bonus. And next we have HP slash HP slash HP. So triple HP. And for the fun of it, for comparison purpose, the last one, we have attack slash hydro slash healing bonus. Okay, so let you guys see how the different permutations will be like. Of course, I'll do a final comparison, don't you worry about it. But if there are any of you guys interested, I'll do a, how should I put it? I'll just pause at the screen of the figures later, so you guys can pause the video anytime to compare if you want to. Alright, now first off, artifacts wise, we are going to assume only 5 rows left, which is not 100% perfect per se, but still pretty demanding on you rolling a lot of HP percentage upgrades, which is 17 HP percentage upgrades across your 5 artifacts. So on average, you need to have about 15 to 20% HP percentage on each of your artifact. That's effectively what we are saying here. Okay? I know it's not easy, but it might be easier than crit rate, right? It might be easier than crit rate and crit damage. It's always hard to get a high number of one specific stat. Now the other thing I want to talk about is that I'm assuming there's ER percent, there's attack percent, HP percent, and flat HP base roll present on all possible artifacts, because that's what I think the best type of values will be. Now if you are in a comp where you are very focused on the reaction damage, you can opt to get EM instead of flat HP as a base roll. So at least you get, say, 20 EM on 5 artifacts. That gives you about 100 EM. 100 EM is still a nicer boost than 0 EM if you are in a team where Kokomi's reaction is very important. The reaction damage is very important. For me, I just selected HP, flat HP, to make the artifact gearing even easier. That's number 1. Number 2, flat HP does contribute, even though it may not contribute as much as HP percentage, but it will still contribute. Right, now CR CD, obviously we don't have any CR, so the CD 50 doesn't matter here. Attack is about 1364 without a attack sense and only having 25% sense. Okay. Now, these are the different type of healing bonus sources. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just running through her kit with you guys before we go into the analysis portion. Just a bit of background on how the damage figures, everything are calculated. If you do not want to look at that, you can skip this entire section earlier. Okay, scenes from earlier. Okay, let's say healing bonus sources you have from HP is 35.9, Flawless Strategy, which is the passive that removes her crit rate but gives her 25% healing bonus. This is 25. R1 and R5, 10 and 20. 2-piece Maiden's Beloved will give you 15, but I'm not including it here, otherwise it screw up my math. So total healing bonus you have 17.9 at R1 and 80.9 at R5, which gives you this amount of damage boost to her damage from her HP. And we'll talk more about that later. So you see the max HP with different type of permutations here, but effectively this is about 46k. Damage percentage sources, you have Ascension, Hydro Damage, Goblet, 2-piece HOD and 4-piece HOD. So in here, I am assuming that we are using a 4-piece HOD for this Kokomi Main map. I'll try to permutate more other artifacts, a few more other artifacts just to compare. But at the end of this video, you'll see why, how should I put it? Why it may make sense to look at other stuff instead of main DPS. Alright, now, so these are the figures. You guys can pause the video at any time, just look at the figures and compare yourself. Now, to make things easier, let me just freeze the view here. Right. Okay. Although it does cut off a huge chunk of the view, but at least the figures are there so you guys can compare. Okay. So I'll slowly move all this. So whoever is interested in this can compare. The typical, very typical style of how I always do my math. You always have the level 6, level 9, and the level 12. In the case of Baal, because she's or Raiden, because she's so popular, I added level 13 too for Raiden and level 10. Okay, so these are the type of figures. At level 12 burst with a level 9 normal attack talent at C6R5 in 2 seconds, it's 58, about 59k. Now, if I look at a more realistic kind of view, C0R1, level 9 burst, level 9 normal talent, is about 32k. And you have 44k at C1. So, what do you guys think? If you remember my Raiden figures, 3 seconds, that's about 80k damage versus this, and 80k is C0R1. So, okay, anyway, that's just a first sneak peek at what I was trying to get at. Let's look at all the analysis. So, in terms of the analysis, we'll talk about Everlasting's Moonglow weapon effect, Everlasting Moonglow's weapon effect. In the important assumption I'm making here, I'll run through the Constellation C1 to C6. Artifact means stats. Everlasting Moonglow R1 to R5. What's the difference? What's the boost? Whether her damage is good or bad, and what's the TLDR. So first off, it's very unlikely that the Everlasting Moonglow weapon effect 1 to 3% HP providing no matter advantage bonus is a multiplier instead of a flat add value, just like how Zhongli's A4 works. Zhongli's A4 is the one where HP, there's a percentage, I think it's 1.39% damage. 1.39% of his max HP is added to his damage. So that is a flat value added. People are reading the weapon effect and it's a very, very serious amount of copium that people are taking in if they're expecting that it's multiplicative bonus, because that will make that weapon absolutely broken for every single catalyst user. I really doubt so. So if it's a multiplier effect, right, the damage C0R1, it jumps all the way to 135k versus 29k at level 6 burst with level 6 normal talent. Only level 6. You don't even need to spend Signora boss materials. You don't need to spend golden talent books. Do you really think that is multiplicative with such type of damage figures? By the way, this does not even include reactions. Does not include what people like to call support showcase, or the 2 or 3 supports that are fully maxed out and adding a lot of damage. So to me, all these damage figures are just way too ridiculous if it's multiplier. I mean, look at R5. It's almost triple, which is expected, right? Because if you think that it's a multiplicative effect, R1 gives you 1%, R5 gives you 3% from your hit max HP. Obviously, it will become like this. So I find it ridiculous. The damage output will be just simply ridiculous if it's a multiplier. This is a damage in 2 seconds without reactions, without buffs. And in fact, imagine if reaction and buffs were factored in, she'll be dealing 1 million plus damage in 2 hits. It's just not possible. I'm sorry to be the one throwing cold water over this, but I've done the math and it really just doesn't seem plausible. And not to mention, if MiHoYo does this, you know how many people will take pitchforks and storm MiHoYo? Because they are locking, this will cause people to say that her damage potential is locked behind her signature weapon, R1 number 1, okay? R1 versus any other weapon. Number 2, R5, people will say that this is completely pay to win. It's ridiculously pay to win, because the pay to win player gets this type of damage, while any other character, or rather any other weapon other than this with a multiplicative effect will get either this amount of damage or even lower. So what do you guys think? Do you think that it's really possible for MiHoYo to design this weapon to be a multiplicative weapon in fact? I don't think it's possible. Okay, personally, I really don't think it's possible. Now let me unfreeze it since the freezing part is over, or rather the figures portion is over, so that I can show more of the screen. And also, I want to show something. Right. Now, this is what I've listed as a damage from the HP from the R1. So what we are saying when we say that people saying that it's a multiplicative instead of flat damage added, what is being said here is that you are saying that the weapon R1 gives you 460% bonus multiplicative damage instead of a flat 460. Do you think this is possible? I seriously think it's not possible. But I might be wrong. MiHoYo maybe really wants to make Kokomi super OP, but it just doesn't make sense. You have balanced, so-called balanced characters like Ayaka and Raiden. Raiden, actually to me Raiden isn't balanced. Raiden is better balanced, but anyway, there's too much drama with regards to Raiden. I don't want to delve into that. I don't want to dip into that. I don't want to open that can of worms. But although by now it's more like a cesspool of worms. But anyway, so for these figures, I really don't think that they are feasible or plausible for MiHoYo to design the weapon as such. Alright, so the very first point I wanted to address is that I think this should be a flat attack damage increase, not multiplier, which will make her damage kinda bad. Not terrible, not good, about average, maybe something like a 4-star DPS character. Like for example, if I were to put a tier, right? Let's say we put people like Ganyu Hu Tao tier 0, not just in terms of the amount of damage they can output, but also say their utility, their consistency. And then you have someone like Raiden. Maybe Raiden is T1 or T0. A character like Kokomi is probably T2, or worse still T3. But I'll show you guys more about why I say that. So let's move on to the next point first. So second point, important assumption. So I'm assuming that her A4 works as the 15% of her healing bonus is multiplied. Sorry, typo here. It's multiplied on her max HP instead of on the flat damage bonus from her max HP. What this means is that let's say you have 100% healing bonus for the easy. Actually, you know what? I could just refer to these figures. I don't really need to. Yeah, okay. So the A4 is here. So let's say with R1 weapon, using 4-piece HOD, you have 70.9 healing bonus. What this means is that you get about 10.6 from this A4 bonus. The way I read it initially, the description of an A4, my understanding was the 10.6% is multiplied onto the flat damage that she's getting, instead of it multiplying on the max HP. And I actually did my math based on that, my entire table based on that. And then the damage was so terrible that I felt like, okay, it really shouldn't be that. It should be a max HP increase. So in other words, take for example her level 6 skill. On her level 6 skill, or rather level 6 burst, okay, level 6 burst talent, the HP modifier that you get in her burst mode is about 6.78%. You gain an additional damage through your charged normal attacks by 6.78% of her max HP. What the A4 does is that it makes that 10.6 plus 6.8. Okay, so it's about 17.38%. Instead of it being just 10.6% of 6.78, which makes it only 7+%. So I think it makes a lot more sense that the A4 works as 15% of a healing bonus multiplied on her max HP. Okay, so that's what I want to cover here, in case it doesn't work that way. But if it doesn't work that way, then MiHoYo is really making her flawless strategy passive terrible, because you get only 25% healing bonus and so little damage boost while losing crit rate. while losing the ability to crit completely. So yeah, I think it should be based on multiplier on max HP, which is why I did this assumption. Okay, so this is important so that you guys know how it's being calculated moving forward, and you know how it's being how it works, so that you don't need to ask me how it works. Okay, now let's talk about the interesting thing that most people would be more interested in, which is constellations. So for constellations, I'm not gonna hide or do it one by one, or just run it through entirely. So C1 is a very nice flat, about 12k damage boost based on 46k HP, and also based on the fact that she's using Hydro Damage Goblet. Alright, and level 90 Kokomi. Obviously the number will vary when your damage bonuses are different. I'll just take it as C1 for now. Oh, and also 2-piece HOD effect. But because it's a flat damage increase, it will diminish in comparison when you invest more in her weapon and talents. So what do I mean by this? C0 to C1 is 40% increase at level 6 burst, while this increase drops to 36% at level 9. Okay, so it's just diminishing return, but it's still a very nice boost, right? Because 36% for C0 C1 is very nice. Raiden's C2 is a 42 to 43% boost. But here's the thing. This boost is on top of a damage figure that's not very high. Whereas on Raiden's, her damage figures are pretty good in my opinion. Okay, so C2, let's talk about C2. Now the way it's phrased in the English translation of the C2, it makes it sound like when you are healing characters with less than 50% HP, you gain bonus to your healing bonus attribute itself, which makes a difference for Kokomi because it means that her damage is increased. But it's not the case, because I read the Chinese original description. It's a completely different term being used, not healing bonus as mentioned in the Constellation. So there is no damage boost for her C2. It's not like Homa where you strive to keep your HP less than 50% and you get a damage boost. It's just not like that. Okay, so that's her C2. C3 increases her burst by 3 levels, but unfortunately for her, unlike the case with Raiden Shogun gets about 17.7 to 20% boost from her burst. For Kokomi, she only gets about a 7% damage increase, because she already has something called healing, her A4, which already gives her like 10.6% damage from her HP. So that additional 3 levels from C3, it is such a huge diminishing return because of this A4 that it's only about a 7% damage increase. Kinda not worth spending on, if you ask me. Okay, now C4 increases her attack speed by 10%, but there's hit lag, so it's hard to say how much this can really improve her DPS. Typically not much though. I really dislike the hit lag effect in this game. But one thing to note is that the energy restoration effect is nice. 2.4 energy is about 2 seconds. It's 0.8 energy per hit. So you get about 2.4 energy in 2 seconds. Her burst lasts for 10 seconds, so that's like 12 energy. Right? So you get 12 energy from this effect. Pretty nice. Helps in giving her 100% burst uptime, or making it easier to get the 100% burst uptime. But it's C4. You're getting energy for C4. C3 gives you 7%. C2 only increases the amount of healing you give to characters with less than 50% HP. And once I heal them beyond 50% HP, I lose this bonus. What kind of a scam constellation is this, honestly speaking? C5 increases the elemental skill, very meh, because the elemental skilling is very bad. Alright, now let's talk about C6. C6 provides a nice 40% hydro damage bonus when you are healing someone with you're healing someone with more than 80% HP. But the moment I say this, you know, I can understand that it's too conditional and situational and too dependent on the new corrosive effect to proc reliably. So for example, right, if the corrosive is slow to proc, the C6 effect may end up being in effect for only 1 to 3 hits, since your heals also heal to full. right? Because I'm assuming that you're using her E at the same time. Which means it sounds nice on paper to get 40% hydro damage boost, but the problem is that how many kind of scenarios will you have where you can keep this 40% hydro damage bonus active? It's way too conditional. And how about when you don't meet any corrosive enemies? What happens then? The moment you heal your character to full, you lose that bonus. Or the moment, for some reason, your character take way too much damage and drop to below 80%. Again, you don't get the C6 boost. So, right now, if you ask me, her cons do not look worth going for beyond C1 in my opinion, if you are using her as a main DPS. It's a pretty bad series of Constellation, honestly speaking. Right now, let's look at artifact main stats. So for the best DPS figures, HP Hydro healing bonus is the way to go. You can see from the figures here, right? You have 53.685 here. C6 R1. Okay, you know what? Let me compare C0 R1. C0 R1, you have 32.3k here versus the rest of these figures. You'll see that it's the best DPS figure within her burst mode. HP Hydro HP, it performs worse in DPS and heals, both DPS and heals versus HP Hydro healing bonus. And it's only better in elemental skill damage, which is a small portion of the DPS, in comparison to normal attacks during her burst. Again, assuming you are using Kokomi as a main DPS. HP healing bonus obviously provides you the best heals, right? But DPS is worse than HP Hydro HP. It's even worse than HP Hydro HP. HP has the worst DPS and the second worst heal, so just avoid that completely. If you are using her as a main DPS, this is the way to go. HP Hydro healing bonus. I have not crunched the math for SAR DPS or enabler support. Once I do that, then we'll have the figures to compare what is the best artifact main stat for that build. Alright, so bear in mind, this is for Kokomi as a main DPS and for PCHOD is used here. I will compare other artifacts in future as well as support / enabler builds. Okay, so everlasting Moonglow R1 to R5, is it worth it? At C0, R1 to R5 is only about 15 to 16% boost. It's very bad in my opinion, not worth spending at all. We'll of course remember that this is based on the fact that the effect is a flat damage increase and not a multiplier. So effectively this weapon is in a situation where if it's flat, it's very bad. If it's multiplicative, it's way too broken and will cause too much drama about her potential being locked behind a signature weapon, or this weapon being so powerful that it immediately elevates every single catalyst user. That will also happen. That will also break the balance. So yeah, I don't know what MiHoYo is thinking. This weapon is not great. It's not good. But I'll cover why I think the design is like this in the TLDR section. So yeah, I've already covered these points here. So at C1, R1 to R5 is only 10 to 11% boost. Why? Because you already got a 30% damage swimming fish from C1's effect. Or rather 30% of her max HP damage. So, is her damage good or bad? The best way to assess this is to compare. Now before I start, I need to make sure that this is clear. I'm not trying to start a Raiden sim versus Kokomi sim thing or drama here. I'm using Raiden because she's the last character I did the math on, so it's just easier for me to compare. That's number one. Number two, it's also fresher on everyone's mind, the performance of Raiden. Okay, and you want to talk about performance, if you have been looking at my gameplay video while I was talking, you'll see that my Raiden is very enjoyable in Spiral Abyss because she always gets to spam a burst, sometimes twice in a chamber, in a half of a chamber. So yeah, that's that. Alright, now let's look at the damage comparison itself. Okay, so Raiden with Engulfing Lightning, C0 and R1, and I assume that you're not having really good artifacts, so it's only about 50% CR with 140% CD. 199 talents. Okay, her normal attack, her elemental skill, and her burst. So total damage in 7 seconds is about 199k. After I factor in the elemental skill as well, together with the burst. Kokomi with everlasting Moonglow. Level 9, level 9, level 9 talents. Now, bear in mind that this is initial hit is 3 seconds, this is initial hit is 2 seconds. It's a bit different because of how short her attack chain is. But bear in mind that for Kokomi, you have to invest in her all 3 talents. Okay, technically speaking, as a main DPS, you may leave your elemental skill at level 6. At level 6. But because her elemental skill can vaporize every tick, it can be slightly a bit more decent or substantial in her DPS. So I'm just gonna assume 999 here. Sorry, if it was 2 figures, then it would be a specific show, right? Broken 99. Yeah, that's the reason why I paused. So anyway, after I did the figures, this is the total damage that we are looking at for Kokomi. And bear in mind that I have been very generous with my vaporized calculations. In other words, this includes vaporized reaction. So I am assuming that you vaporize on the burst initial hit and every third hit of the normal attack cycle, assuming that you are not doing any animation cancel to match the 2.5 seconds ICD. Okay, and I'm assuming that you are vaporize on every vaporize on every elemental skill every tick is definitely doable. It's already been shown that she can vaporize every tick. But it's tough to maintain. It's very tough to maintain along with the burst hits, right? Because you need to make sure that you constantly have a strong pyro there, strong pyro application. But while you're using Kokomi as a burst, she's going to be the one that is the faster hydro applicator. More often than not, the faster elemental applicator will not be the triggering element when it comes to melt or vaporize. I mean, this is a very generic statement, but it is typically how the scenario will be because of how the elemental gauges work. So right now, this situation, that's why I say that I'm being very generous here to Kokomi by assuming that she can indeed be the one that's triggering vaporize on every third hit of a normal attack, on her elemental skill, and even on her burst initiate everything within that 7 seconds. I'm being very generous to Kokomi here, seriously. Okay, I don't think she will actually be the one to vaporize every third hit. Likely she will be more of an enabler. For sure her elemental skill is an enabler. Her normal burst hit along with her enabler skill triggering the reactions may work against this too. So anyway, me being generous here to Kokomi means that her damage is slightly inflated. I'll say her damage is a bit inflated here. But it's fine because if you look at it, it's 163k. It's still lesser than Raiden Shogun. Both of these figures are without any teammate buffs. For Raiden there's no reaction, but for Kokomi, Vaporize is already included. Can you imagine? Vaporize included for Kokomi and the damage is still lesser than Raiden. EC reaction damage not included for Baal above or any other reaction damage for that matter, but Vaporize is fully included. The community is divided on the Raiden's DPS or Baal's DPS, and yet she still does 22% better than Kokomi here. And not to mention the 199 versus 999, you need a lot more investment and time required, and time meaning you are gated by the Sinora materials availability, which is only 2 to 3 every week. So, she's not in a good state. Okay, she's really not in a good state. Now, I had very low expectations of Kokomi's DPS to begin with because she's a healer. So I'm not 100% surprised by these figures, but it still did surprise me a little. That is lower than Raiden with Vaporize. It's actually lower than Raiden with Vaporize, as you can see here. So that's the reason why it took longer for this math video, because I had to re-look all my figures just to double check and make sure everything is correct. That's the reason why it took me a bit of time to do this math video for Kokomi. But now that this is done, I think the rest while I add on will be much better. Okay, I'll try to do one new Kokomi math video every 1 or 2 days. So to me, right, MiHoYo's design for Kokomi seems more like a healer that can heal you consistently instead of via burst, because we all know that burst is restricted by energy and cooldown. It's not that great when you are in a corrosive environment. Now this ensures that you don't lose too much DPS while she's healing you consistently through her normal attacks and her elemental skill. At least her damage is lower than Raiden, but I think her damage, basically what it means that it's just that while you're healing, you don't lose too much DPS. That's just the whole gist of it. So if you think Raiden's or DPS is good, Kokomi is only 22% behind, so that's not bad considering she's a healer, right? But if you're on the side of the community who thinks that Raiden's DPS is bad, she's an electro element, etc., Kokomi will be even worse, because even with Vaporize generously assumed for her, she still does lesser damage than Raiden. Without any support showcase or without any other support showcase, this is just purely solo damage. Okay, no buffers. So yeah, I kinda don't feel like she's designed as a main DPS per se. I feel like MiHoYo is just designing her as a healer to heal you consistently instead of via burst, so that you are free of the burst restrictions. While you're healing, at least you don't lose too much DPS. That's the feeling that I'm getting from MiHoYo. So anyway, next video, we'll look into her enabler / support build, which will be more promising than her main DPS build. I have not done the math for that, so I'll have to take some time off to go look into doing the math for the enabler / support build. But I do think that her enabler is gonna be pretty nice. Okay. Not for Vaporize, but for Frozen and Electrocharge. Electrocharge is a bit special though. If you want to use her enabler as an Electrocharge, you should build her full EM. Full EM. But somehow I would rather do a animal characters to absorb Hydro. So because animal characters with EM just gain more benefits, right? Because there are so many animal characters who are built around EM, their kit. You have Sucrose, you have Kazuha, you have Sayu. They are all built around EM, their kit. So yeah, so that's that. But it does have potential doing a full EM Kokomi for just her elemental skill, and obviously to heal you at the same time. So anyway, the next math video we will do the enabler support build. Let's hope it's better than her main DPS. Thanks everyone for watching. The video went on a bit longer than I wanted to, mainly because I spent the first 11 or 12 minutes talking about her kit, the assumptions made, as well as some of the damage figures. But no worries, you guys can easily skip that. I'll put it as a section so that you can easily skip that if you want to. So I hope this has been helpful to you guys in terms of the weapon effect, how her kit works, some of the assumptions, constellations, artifact main stats, weapon R1 to R5, whether her damage is good or bad. Alright? If you like the content, remember to like the video and click subscribe for more, because I'll definitely be doing more Kokomi math videos. Alright. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.